On a foggy evening, the town by the river lay shrouded in a quiet stillness, the thick mist weaving between the slender trees and softening the edges of the old wooden bridge that spanned the gentle current. The air held a chill, the kind that crept into your bones, urging those nearby to pull their coats tighter and hasten their footsteps. Along the riverside path, the faint sound of water lapping against the banks mingled with the occasional rustle of leaves, a peaceful symphony that masked the tension about to unfold. Jake Miller, a man whose presence seemed to blend into the somber landscape, walked slowly with his loyal Labrador, Max, by his side. The years had etched lines around Jake's eyes, but beneath the calm exterior lingered the sharp instincts of a former Navy SEAL. His gait was steady, purposeful, as if every step was measured against a quiet vigilance that refused to dim, even in this small town, far from the battles he once fought. Max trotted close, his golden coat catching the scarce light, alert and faithful, sensing the quiet strength in his companion. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The town had offered Jake a semblance of peace after years of service. No more firefights, no more missions deep in hostile territory. Here, surrounded by familiar faces and the slow rhythm of rural life, he sought to reclaim a quieter existence. Yet, the bond between Jake and Max was more than companionship. It was a partnership forged in adversity and trust. Max's keen senses complemented Jake's experience, a living extension of his awareness that often noticed what others overlooked. As they approached the bridge, Jake's sharp eyes caught a flicker of movement in the fog, a shadow among shadows, subtle but out of place. The faint sound of muffled voices carried on the damp air, strained and urgent, pulling at Jake's attention. His heart quickened imperceptibly, a signal he had learned to heed. Something was wrong. Drawing closer, he saw them. Two men, their faces obscured by the dim light and thick fog, dragging a young boy toward the water's edge. The boy struggled weakly, fear evident in his trembling frame. Beside him, a dog, small and scruffy, whined softly, tethered by a thin leash that the men gripped with unyielding force. The sight struck a chord deep within Jake, stirring a protective instinct that no amount of time could dull. The river below churned quietly, its surface reflecting the pale glow of a nearby street lamp filtered through the mist. The scene was stark against the soft backdrop of the town's quiet evening, a moment suspended between calm and chaos. The thug's intentions were clear. Jake's mind raced, piecing together the grim possibility that these two meant to do the boy and his dog harm. Max stiffened beside him. Low growls, rumbling from deep within his chest, a warning that echoed Jake's own resolve. Without hesitation, Jake's hand moved toward the pocket of his jacket, fingers brushing against the cold metal of a flashlight. Light was scarce, and the fog thickened with every passing second. But he knew he had to act fast. The boy's eyes met Jake's for a brief flicker of recognition, a silent plea for help that ignited the former SEAL's determination. Time stretched thin as Jake calculated the distance, the odds, the dangers hidden in the obscured riverbank. He called out, his voice steady but commanding, cutting through the fog like a blade. "Hey, let him go." The thugs paused, their heads turning sharply toward the source of the voice. The boy jerked against his captors, muscles tensing as if sensing a chance to break free. Max barked loudly, the sound sharp and urgent, breaking the stillness and drawing attention to the unfolding crisis. Jake's heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline surging as he prepared to intervene. His years of training kicked in, the muscle memory of countless missions guiding his movements even as the fog swirled around him. Every second counted. The first thug snarled, dragging the boy closer to the water's edge. "Mind your own business," he growled, voice rough and threatening. But Jake was already moving, stepping out from the shadows toward the bridge's worn wooden planks. Max surged forward, a flash of golden fur and teeth, his loyalty and courage unshakable. The boy's small body trembled as he was dragged nearer to the river, the cold water lapping hungrily at the bank. Jake's eyes scanned the scene quickly. No weapons visible, just brute force and menace. He assessed the distance, gauged the thug's positioning, and prepared to close the gap. The fog seemed to thicken, muffling sounds and blurring outlines. But Jake's senses sharpened in the dim light. The boy's dog struggled against the leash, squealing softly, a desperate plea for freedom that tugged at Jake's resolve. "Let him go," Jake repeated, his voice low but firm, stepping closer with Max at his heels. The tension coiled in the air like a spring about to snap. The fog, the river, the bridge, all elements in a quiet stage set for a dangerous confrontation. But Jake's focus was clear. Protect the innocent, stop the violence, and bring the night's dark intentions to light. As Jake's silhouette emerged through the mist, the boy's eyes shone with hope, the dog's tail trembling in cautious anticipation. The peaceful riverside was no longer just a place of quiet reflection. It had become the front line of a battle for survival, where courage and loyalty would be tested in the moments to come. Jake's breath hitched as adrenaline surged through his veins. His eyes locked on the two men forcing the boy and his dog toward the river's edge. The fog thickened around them like a suffocating shroud, muffling sounds and obscuring details, but Jake's instincts were razor sharp. Years of training had honed his senses to detect danger even in the quietest moments, and this was one of those moments, urgent and unforgiving. His heart hammered in his chest as he quickened his pace, Max moving with him, muscles coiled and ready. The boy's small frame trembled under the grip of the thugs, his wide eyes reflecting a mix of fear and desperation. The dog, a scruffy mutt with matted fur, whimpered softly, its leash taut as it struggled against the men's firm grasp. The scene was a cruel tableau against the stillness of the night, and Jake knew he had to act fast before the situation spiraled beyond control. "Hey!" Jake called out again, his voice cutting through the fog like a sharp blade. "Let him go!" The thugs glanced toward the voice, their faces emerging hazily from the mist. Harsh, unshaven, eyes cold and hard. The taller of the two snarled, tightening his hold on the boy's arm. "You don't want to get involved, old man," he spat, voice rough and tainted with menace. Jake's gaze hardened. He recognized the warning for what it was, a challenge. The boy was slipping closer to the riverbank, the water dark and unforgiving beneath the aged bridge. The current whispered threats as it swirled around scattered rocks, promising swift and merciless consequences. Jake's mind raced, calculating the risks and timing, knowing that hesitation could mean tragedy. Max growled low, a steady rumble of warning that echoed Jake's resolve. The dog yelped, struggling harder, eyes locked on Jake as if pleading for rescue. The tension in the air was electric, a dangerous dance on the edge of chaos. Without hesitation, Jake broke into a sprint, his boots pounding against the wooden planks of the bridge. Max surged forward beside him, powerful and determined. The thugs tensed, surprised by the sudden movement, but their grip on the boy and dog did not falter. The taller man barked an order. "Hold him! Don't let him get close!" The boy's legs kicked weakly, his small hands clawing at the men's grasp, but fear weighed him down. The dog's leash slipped slightly, the animal pulling with desperate strength. The river's edge loomed closer, the cold water ready to claim them both if the thugs succeeded. Jake's mind flashed back to his years in the SEALs, countless missions where split-second decisions meant life or death. The training drilled into him an unwavering commitment to protect the vulnerable. And now, that commitment was put to the test once again. He adjusted his stride, closing the distance with precision, eyes scanning for any advantage. "Let him go now," Jake commanded, voice low but uncompromising as he neared the group. The shorter thug sneered, stepping forward menacingly. "Or what? You'll stop us? You're just some washed-up soldier playing hero." Jake's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond with words. Instead, his body shifted, coiling like a spring ready to unleash. Max barked sharply, the sound cutting through the fog, signaling the readiness to act. The boy's frightened glance flicked between Jake and the river, hope mingling with terror. Suddenly, the taller thug shoved the boy toward the water, and time seemed to slow. Jake exploded into action, lunging forward just as the boy stumbled and fell. Without hesitation, Jake dove, arms outstretched, catching the boy's small body before he could be swept away by the current. The cold river water licked at them both, the shock of the chills stealing the breath from Jake's lungs. Max leapt into the river after them, teeth bared, snapping at the thugs who hesitated on the bank. The dog, sensing the shift, wriggled free from the shorter thug's grip and paddled toward Jake and the boy, its scruffy fur plastered to its body. Jake gritted his teeth against the cold, cradling the boy protectively as Max circled defensively, snarling at the men who were now shouting in frustration. The river's current tugged relentlessly, but Jake's strength held firm, his training guiding every motion. The boy clung to him, shivering but alive, eyes wide with disbelief at the sudden rescue. The thugs exchanged glances, weighing their options as they cursed and shouted threats. The taller man brandished a broken piece of wood, advancing cautiously toward the water's edge, while the shorter one fumbled with something in his pocket. Perhaps a weapon or a tool of intimidation. Jake's mind raced, aware that the danger was far from over. The river was cold and unforgiving, and though he had secured the boy, the thug's desperation could escalate the violence in an instant. Max growled, muscles taut, ready to defend the trio at any cost. "Back off," Jake warned, voice firm and unwavering. "Leave now, or I will make sure you regret this." The threat hung heavy in the misty air, a silent promise backed by years of experience and the unyielding loyalty of his dog. The boy's small fingers clutched Jake's wet jacket, seeking safety in the midst of chaos. The shorter thug pulled out a flickering lighter, a flicker of flame that briefly illuminated his face in the fog. The firelight danced ominously, hinting at a threat Jake could not ignore. The taller man tightened his grip on the broken wood, stepping closer with a sneer that promised violence. Jake's senses sharpened further. The fight was imminent, and every second counted. His eyes darted between the two men, calculating their reach, their strength, their willingness to harm. Max growled low, a warning that the storm was about to break. The boy whimpered softly, the cold seeping into his bones, but his trust in Jake was clear. Jake tightened his hold, whispering reassurances he barely felt himself. The river's current tugged at his legs, the weight of the water adding to the urgency. Then, suddenly, the taller thug lunged forward, swinging the piece of wood with brutal force. Jake reacted instinctively, raising his arm to block the blow, the impact reverberating up his arm but not halting his resolve. Max leapt, teeth flashing, intercepting the attacker with a fierce growl that stopped the strike midair. The shorter thug moved toward the boy, but Jake shifted, positioning himself between them. His voice was calm, but deadly serious. Step back. This isn't going to end well for you. The tension exploded into a flurry of motion as the confrontation escalated. But Jake's focus never wavered. His mind was a storm of training, instincts, and fierce determination to protect the boy and his dog from the threat that loomed close. In that foggy, tense moment by the riverside bridge, Jake Miller and Max prepared to fight for survival. Not just their own, but for the innocent lives caught in the grip of danger. Jake's muscles tensed as the taller thug swung the piece of broken wood with vicious intent. But his years of combat training kicked in without hesitation. Raising his forearm, Jake absorbed the blow with a grunt, the impact reverberating up his arm, sending a sharp jolt through his body. Yet his resolve remained ironclad. Max, ever vigilant, lunged with a snarl, teeth bared, intercepting the attack midair. The dog's fierce presence forced the thug to stagger back, eyes wide with surprise. The shorter thug, sensing the shift in momentum, tightened his grip on the boy, who was still trembling in Jake's protective hold. The boy's small fingers clung desperately to Jake's jacket, seeking refuge from the chaos unfolding around him. The scruffy dog, now freed from the leash, circled anxiously, growling low as if ready to defend its young companion. Jake's breath came in controlled bursts, his mind racing even as his body moved with practiced precision. He shifted, positioning himself firmly between the boy and the advancing men, his voice low but resolute. Step back. This isn't going to end well for you. The fog swirled thickly around them, muffling the sounds of the struggle yet amplifying the tension that hung heavy in the air. The river's current whispered ominously below, a reminder of the danger that loomed if the confrontation escalated further. Jake's gaze flicked to the water, then back to the thugs, calculating every possible outcome with the clarity born of countless life-or-death situations. The shorter thug sneered, his eyes glinting with a mix of fear and frustration. He pulled a small, jagged knife from his pocket, the blade catching the faint glow of the street lamp above. "Let's see how tough you really are," he snarled, lunging forward. Jake reacted instantly, stepping to the side to avoid the wild slash. His training taught him to remain calm under pressure, to read his opponent's movements and exploit openings. With a swift motion, he grabbed the thug's wrist, twisting it hard enough to force the blade to clatter against the wooden planks of the bridge and fall to the ground. Max barked sharply, circling the thug and snapping at his heels while Jake tightened his grip, forcing the man to stagger backward. The shorter thug cursed, struggling to break free, but Jake's hold was unyielding. His eyes never left the boy, who was now clutching Max's fur, seeking reassurance. The taller thug, recovering from the earlier surprise, charged again, swinging the broken wood with brutal force. Jake braced himself, dodging the blow by dropping low and sweeping his leg in a practiced move that sent the attacker crashing to the ground. The wood shattered on impact, splintering into jagged pieces that scattered across the bridge. Max leapt onto the fallen thug, pinning him down with a fierce growl, teeth bared inches from the man's face. The thug's eyes widened in shock, his earlier menace replaced by fear. Jake wasted no time, pulling the boy closer to his side and scanning the surroundings for any sign of help. The boy's lips quivered as he whispered, "Thank you," his voice barely audible over the rush of the river below. Tears mixed with the mist on his cheeks, but relief shone in his eyes. Max nudged the boy gently, his tail wagging despite the tension. Jake's mind raced. The immediate threat was subdued, but the danger was far from over. The thugs could still call for reinforcements or return with weapons. Time was critical. He needed to get the boy and dog to safety before the situation escalated. He glanced at the dog, now cautiously approaching Max, tail wagging in tentative friendship. The scruffy animal seemed to understand it was safe for the moment, though its eyes remained alert. "Stay close," Jake said quietly to the boy, wrapping an arm protectively around him. "We're getting out of here." The boy nodded, his small hands clutching Jake's jacket as they moved toward the far end of the bridge. Max stayed close, his body tense but ready to defend at a moment's notice. As they reached the bridge's edge, Jake's ears caught the distant sound of sirens, faint but growing louder. Relief flickered in his chest. Help was on the way, but there was no time to wait. The thugs could still be dangerous, and the boy and dog needed to be out of harm's way. Jake scanned the thick fog around them, searching for a safe path through the trees lining the riverbank. The ground was uneven and slick with moisture, but Jake's strong legs propelled him forward, carrying the boy and dog with careful urgency. Max led the way, nose to the ground, alert to every sound and movement. The boy's breathing steadied as they moved away from the water and the immediate threat, but his small hands remained tightly clenched around Jake's jacket. Suddenly, a shout pierced the fog from behind them. A harsh, angry cry from one of the thugs still struggling on the bridge. Jake froze for a split second, muscles coiled like a spring, growled, ears flattening, ready to turn and face the danger. "Keep moving," Jake urged the boy, quickening his pace. "We're almost there." They pushed through the underbrush, branches scraping against their faces and clothing. The boy stumbled once, but Jake caught him, steadying his balance. The dog trotted close, its wet fur glistening in the faint light. The sirens grew louder now, accompanied by the harsh glare of approaching headlights cutting through the fog. Jake's heart pounded with a mix of hope and tension. The night was far from over, but they were no longer alone. As the first patrol car pulled up near the bridge, Jake glanced back one last time. The thugs were shouting threats, but their power had waned in the face of Jake's swift intervention and Max's fierce loyalty. With the boy safe in his arms and the dog at his side, Jake stepped into the circle of light cast by the police car's headlights. The officers moved quickly, securing the scene and tending to the rescued boy and his dog. Jake's breath began to slow, the adrenaline ebbing away, replaced by a quiet determination. The night had tested his instincts and courage, but he had answered the call once more, protecting the innocent when it mattered most. Max sat obediently at Jake's feet, eyes shining with unwavering loyalty. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged as guardians in the mist, ready to face whatever challenges awaited beyond the quiet riverside bridge. The night air hung heavy with tension as Jake Miller stood near the edge of the quiet riverside bridge, the boy safely in the arms of a responding officer and the scruffy dog nestled close by. The patrol car's flashing lights cast fractured shadows among the trees, but Jake's attention was fixed elsewhere. On the two thugs still lingering nearby, their faces twisted with fury and desperation. The air was thick with unspoken threats, and Jake sensed that the danger had only begun to escalate. As the officers secured the rescued boy and dog, Jake's gaze shifted back to the crumbling wooden bridge beneath his feet. It was an aging structure, worn by years of weather and neglect, its planks weakened and creaking ominously with every movement. The thugs, their anger mounting, had already shown a willingness to resort to violence. Now, as one of them paced near the bridge's center, Jake noticed something more disturbing: a small, hastily concealed bundle of wires and a timer, barely visible beneath a loose plank. Jake's military instincts flared instantly. His mind raced, piecing together the grim possibility. The thugs intended to destroy the bridge, severing the only escape route and cutting off any chance of immediate help reaching the boy and his dog. The thought sent a chill through him far colder than the night air. If the bridge fell, it wouldn't just trap them all. It could lead to catastrophe, possibly claiming innocent lives. Max growled low, his fur bristling as he sensed Jake's rising tension. The dog's unyielding loyalty mirrored the man's resolve. Jake crouched briefly, examining the makeshift device with careful eyes. The timer ticked down silently, its cold mechanics a stark contrast to the warmth of the life he'd just saved. "Damn it," Jake muttered under his breath, fingers brushing over the wires, calculating the time left. The device looked crude but effective, enough to bring the bridge down if left unchecked. He glanced back at the thugs, who bickered nearby, unaware of his discovery, their focus consumed by their rage and the arrival of law enforcement. Jake knew he couldn't wait for backup to figure this out. Every second counted, and hesitation would be deadly. "Max," Jake whispered, signaling the dog to stay close. His mind shifted rapidly from protector to tactician. Years of training flooded back, diffusing explosives, assessing structures, controlling chaos. He had to act, and fast. Jake scanned the immediate area for something to help, his eyes catching sight of a sturdy metal rod lying near the bridge's support beams. Grabbing it, he moved carefully toward the device, mindful of the ticking timer and the fragile wooden planks beneath his feet. The fog thickened, muffling sounds and blurring outlines, but Jake's focus was razor-sharp. The thugs' voices grew louder, their threats directed now at the officers who had begun questioning them, but Jake pushed the noise aside. The bridge's fate hung in the balance. Kneeling, Jake examined the bomb more closely. The wires were crudely connected, but the timer's countdown was unmistakable. He traced the circuits, recalling his training. The red wire might be the power line, the blue, the trigger. He needed to disable the device without setting it off. Max sat alert beside him, eyes scanning the shadows, ears perked for any sudden movement. The dog's presence was a quiet source of strength amid the rising storm. Suddenly, a shout rang out from the far side of the bridge. One of the thugs had spotted Jake crouched over the device. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" The voice was raw with anger. Jake's heart pounded as he froze for a moment, then forced himself to keep working. The timer ticked relentlessly downward, each second a hammer blow to his nerves. "Max, stay," Jake commanded quietly, eyes never leaving the wires. The dog obeyed, growling softly but remaining still. The thug's footsteps echoed across the wood, growing louder as he advanced. Jake's fingers moved with careful precision, cutting one wire and then another, the seconds slipping away. His breath was steady, controlled, a testament to years of discipline even in the face of imminent danger. Suddenly, a sharp crack sounded as a plank beneath Jake's knee splintered. The thug lunged forward, shouting, "Stop him!" Max sprang into action, leaping toward the approaching man with a fierce snarl. The thug stumbled back, momentarily stunned by the dog's sudden attack. Jake seized the moment, cutting the final wire just as the timer hit 0. The device clicked off, the threat neutralized. Breathing a sigh of relief, Jake rose slowly, keeping a wary eye on the thugs. Their rage had transformed into something more dangerous now. Recklessness born of desperation. The officers moved swiftly, handcuffing the men before they could mount another attack. Jake helped secure them, the weight of the night's events pressing heavily on his shoulders. As emergency personnel began inspecting the bridge and escorting the boy and dog to safety, Jake stood silent, the fog swirling around him like a veil. The bridge, once a symbol of passage and connection, had nearly become a trap. Its destruction, a cruel plan, halted just in time. Max nudged Jake's side, a reminder of the bond forged in the crucible of danger and loyalty. Jake glanced down at his faithful companion, gratitude and determination mingling in his gaze. The night was far from over, and the shadows that had crept into this quiet town remained. But for now, the bridge stood firm, a testament to quick thinking and courage in the face of a deadly threat. Jake knew vigilance was the price of peace, and he was ready to pay it. Jake stood on the bridge, the cold night air biting at his face as the fog curled thick around him, dampening sound and shrouding the world in gray. The thugs were restrained now, cuffed behind their backs and guarded by the officers who had arrived moments before. Yet Jake's mind raced beyond the immediate calm. He knew the threat had almost spiraled out of control, and the fragile wooden bridge was a ticking time bomb that could have collapsed under the weight of the explosion. Max sat attentively by Jake's side, eyes scanning the darkness beyond the bridge, ever watchful. Jake's mind worked rapidly, drawing on his military training, analyzing the scene as a SEAL would, calculating risks, anticipating moves, and formulating a plan. His gaze flicked from the bomb's remnants to the bridge's aged planks, imagining the devastating consequences had the device detonated. The thug's plan wasn't just to harm the boy and his dog, it was to sever the town's vital connection, to isolate and intimidate. Jake's breath fogged in the cold air as he crouched down, running a hand over the weathered wood. The bridge was structurally unsound in places, worn thin by years of neglect and harsh elements. One wrong move, one poorly timed explosion, and the entire structure could crumble, leaving the community cut off and vulnerable. The officers spoke quietly among themselves, but Jake tuned out their voices, focusing instead on what needed to be done next. Waiting for bomb disposal experts or engineers wasn't an option. The device had been disabled, but the potential for further sabotage lingered. If the thugs had accomplices or other devices planted nearby, the danger would persist. Jake's sharp eyes caught movement in the underbrush along the riverbank. A subtle shift in the fog, too deliberate to be natural. His instincts screamed caution. "Max, stay close," he murmured, voice low but firm. The dog pressed against his leg, sensing the tension. Jake reached into his jacket pocket, fingers brushing the familiar grip of his tactical knife. Not a weapon he wanted to use lightly, but necessary if the situation worsened. He moved cautiously toward the edge of the bridge, scanning the shadowed tree line. The fog twisted and thickened, turning the familiar surroundings into an unpredictable maze. His military training drilled into him the importance of situational awareness, and Jake's senses were on high alert. Suddenly, a faint rustle echoed from the bushes, followed by a whispered curse. Jake froze, heart pounding. Another figure emerged, a silhouette barely visible through the mist. An accomplice, perhaps, or a lookout still intent on causing harm. "Hey!" Jake called out sharply, voice carrying despite the fog. "Step into the light." The figure hesitated, then took a slow step forward, hands raised in surrender. A younger man, eyes darting nervously. Jake's mind raced. Was this a scout sent to monitor the situation? Or someone else entangled in the thug's dangerous plans? Jake's voice softened slightly, though his stance remained firm. "Who are you? What's your role here?" The man swallowed hard, voice trembling. I was hired to watch the bridge. Didn't know they planned to blow it up. Thought it was just a scare tactic." Jake's gaze hardened. "Who hired you?" The man shook his head, panic rising. "I don't know. Some guy with a scar on his face paid me good money to keep an eye out." Jake's mind connected the dots. A larger network, more dangerous than the two men caught on the bridge. The threat was far from over. He motioned for the officers to secure the man, then turned back toward the bridge. The boy and dog were safe, but the town's safety was still at risk. Jake knew he couldn't rely solely on the local police. This was beyond their usual scope. Drawing on his tactical knowledge, Jake formulated a plan. First, he needed to sweep the surrounding area for additional explosives or threats. Then, he would coordinate with bomb disposal units and local authorities to secure the bridge and nearby infrastructure. But time was critical. Any delay could give the perpetrators a chance to strike again. Max nudged Jake's hand, grounding him amidst the chaos. The dog's unwavering loyalty was a constant reminder of what was at stake. Jake took a deep breath, steadying himself. "We need to move fast. This isn't just about tonight. It's about protecting the whole community." The officers nodded, rallying around Jake's leadership. Together, they began organizing a perimeter, calling for specialized units, and preparing for a thorough sweep. As the fog thickened once more, Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle firmly on his shoulders. His training had prepared him for danger, but protecting innocent lives was a mission that transcended any battlefield. He glanced once more at the boy, now safe under the care of the officers, and the scruffy dog resting quietly nearby. Their lives depended on his resolve and swift action. With Max by his side and determination burning in his chest, Jake steeled himself for the work ahead. The night was far from over, and the fight to safeguard the town had only just begun. The cold night air pressed heavily around Jake as he stood back on the bridge, the flickering blue and red lights from the police cars casting harsh shadows that danced unpredictably across the fog-soaked wood. The two thugs, now restrained and subdued, glared with simmering rage from their handcuffs. But Jake knew their fury was a fleeting threat compared to what lay ahead. The tension in the air was thick, palpable, as if the night itself held its breath, waiting for the inevitable storm to break. Jake's gaze hardened as he surveyed the scene. The bridge, a fragile relic of weathered timber and rusting iron, groaned underfoot, its worn planks creaking ominously with each movement. The threat had nearly destroyed it, not through decay, but by the cruel hands of men who sought to sever the lifeline of the town. His mind replayed the discovery of the crude bomb, the ticking timer, and the narrow window he had to neutralize it. That split-second decision had saved not only the boy and his dog, but potentially the entire community from isolation. Yet the danger was far from over. The officers worked diligently to secure the scene, but Jake's training screamed that this was more than a random act of violence. The harsh exchange between the thugs and the officers earlier hinted at a deeper conspiracy, one that could unravel the fragile peace of the town. Suddenly, the sharp crack of a twig snapping in the fogged tree line snapped Jake from his thoughts. Instinctively, he stiffened, eyes narrowing into the mist. Max, ever alert, lowered his body into a stalking crouch, muscles taut and ready. The boy, now safely wrapped in a blanket and seated beside one of the officers, looked toward the sound with wide, frightened eyes. Jake's voice was low but commanding. "Stay here," he instructed the officer, then stepped off the bridge toward the shadowy edge of the trees, Max following silently behind. The fog clung to the underbrush, swallowing shapes whole and transforming familiar paths into a maze of uncertainty. Jake's senses sharpened, every rustle and whisper amplified in his ears. His hand hovered near his sidearm, though he hoped it wouldn't come to that. Years of training taught him the value of patience and assessment in tense situations. A figure emerged slowly from the mist, hands raised in a mixture of surrender and desperation. It was a young man, his clothes disheveled and eyes darting nervously. Jake's stance remained firm but not aggressive as he called out, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The man swallowed hard, voice trembling. "I was told to watch the bridge. I didn't know about the bomb. I swear." His eyes flicked nervously toward the restrained thugs, then back to Jake. "Some scar-faced guy hired me. Said it was just to scare people, nothing more." Jake's mind raced, connecting the dots. This was no random crime. It was a calculated act of intimidation, possibly orchestrated by a larger network with dangerous intentions. The young man's admission confirmed his fears. The threat extended beyond the immediate scene. "Did you see anyone else? Any other devices or plans?" Jake pressed, voice steady but insistent. The man shook his head. "No, just me. I swear. I wanted out as soon as I found out what they were really planning." Jake nodded slowly, signaling the officers nearby to take the man into custody for questioning. Then, turning back toward the bridge, he considered the next steps. The structure was compromised, the bomb's damage not fully visible in the dim light and thick fog. It needed a thorough inspection, one that required experts and swift action. Returning to the officers, Jake outlined his plan, drawing on his military experience to coordinate a tactical response. "We need a full sweep of the area for any additional threats. Call in bomb disposal and structural engineers immediately. And we secure a perimeter. No one gets in or out until we're sure it's safe." The officers nodded, moving quickly to execute the orders. Jake's presence brought a sense of calm authority, his decisiveness cutting through the chaos like a beacon. Max sat obediently at Jake's feet, alert and watchful, a silent partner in the unfolding drama. The boy, now comforted and safe, clung to the dog's fur, their bond unbroken despite the night's terror. As the fog deepened, swallowing the edges of the scene, Jake's thoughts lingered on the people of the town, their lives intertwined with the fragile bridge and the unseen threats that lurked in the shadows. He felt the weight of responsibility settle heavier on his shoulders. Protecting them was no longer just about stopping tonight's violence. It was about vigilance and preparedness for the dangers yet to come. The distant wail of sirens and the hum of arriving reinforcements filled the night, a reminder that help was near, but that the fight was far from over. Jake's eyes scanned the darkness, ready for whatever emerged from the mist. With Max by his side and resolve burning bright, Jake steeled himself for the confrontation ahead. The night was a battlefield, and he was ready to defend the innocent against the encroaching shadows. The cold night air thickened with tension as Jake Miller crouched behind the rusted railing of the riverside bridge, eyes sharp and muscles coiled like a spring. The fog wove through the trees and over the river's surface, swallowing sounds and distorting shapes, but Jake's senses remained razor-focused. The officers had secured the two thugs, their angry curses muffled beneath the hum of arriving reinforcements. Yet the threat was far from neutralized. If anything, it had sharpened. Jake's gaze flicked to the shattered remains of the crude explosive device he had dismantled mere moments before. The timer's final tick echoed in his mind, a narrow escape from devastation. The bridge, old and fragile, bore the scars of the attempted sabotage, its wooden planks splintered and unstable underfoot. It was a lifeline for the town, and if it collapsed, the consequences would ripple far beyond the immediate danger. Max sat alert by Jake's side, muscles tense, ears pricked to every sound. The loyal Labrador's gaze mirrored Jake's determination, a silent pact forged through countless trials. The boy and his scruffy dog, safe now under the care of paramedics, remained etched in Jake's thoughts, a reminder of the innocence hanging in the balance. Suddenly, a sharp whistle cut through the fog, followed by the low rumble of engines. From the bend in the road, A convoy of emergency vehicles and specialized units rolled in, their lights piercing the mist like beacons. Bomb disposal experts, structural engineers, and additional law enforcement officers swarmed the scene, their presence turning the tide in the escalating crisis. Jake rose slowly, nodding to the team leader, a woman whose calm efficiency radiated authority. "I'm Jake Miller," he introduced himself, voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "I was the one who found and disabled the bomb." She nodded, eyes scanning the damaged bridge. "We're here to assess and secure. This bridge is critical infrastructure. We'll need to act fast." The team moved with practiced precision, cordoning off the area and setting up equipment to scan the structure for further explosives or weaknesses. Jake joined them, his military background lending credibility and insight to the operation. He shared details about the device, the thugs, and the suspicion of accomplices lurking in the shadows. As the experts swept the bridge and surrounding terrain, Jake kept vigil, eyes never leaving the thickening fog. The night seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the next move in a deadly game. Then, without warning, the thugs, still cuffed but desperate, shouted warnings, their voices hoarse with frustration and rage. "You think this is over? There's more where that came from." Jake's jaw clenched. The threat was real, and the danger extended beyond the immediate scene. His mind raced, recalling the young man caught watching the bridge earlier, a scout for a larger network. The bomb squad leader gestured toward a section of the bridge's underside, where sensors detected faint electrical signals. "Possible secondary device," she warned. Jake's pulse quickened. Time was running out. The team moved swiftly, carefully dismantling the additional device amid the creaking, groaning bridge. Each second stretched taut with peril as they worked against the ticking clock of potential catastrophe. Max growled low, sensing the tension, as the boy and his dog were moved farther away to safety. Jake's eyes flicked to them briefly, then back to the painstaking task unfolding before him. Finally, the bomb squad leader signaled all clear. The secondary device was rendered harmless. Relief washed over Jake, but was tempered by the knowledge that the bridge's structural integrity remained compromised. The engineers began assessing the damage, their faces grim. Jake stepped aside, the weight of responsibility pressing heavily upon him. The town's safety depended not only on preventing explosions, but on securing this vital artery before it gave way. As dawn's first light began to pierce the fog, Jake stood vigilant, Max at his side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The night's ordeal had been a fierce battle of wits and courage, a high-stakes showdown on a fragile bridge between darkness and hope. The first light of dawn seeped through the lingering fog, casting a pale glow over the quiet riverside bridge. The night's chaos had given way to a tense stillness as emergency personnel worked methodically to secure the area. Jake Miller, soaked and exhausted, stood near the bridge's edge, his gaze fixed on the boy and his scruffy dog now wrapped in warm blankets and surrounded by medics. The boy's eyes, once wide with terror, had begun to soften with relief. And the dog's tail thumped weakly against the ground, its loyalty unbroken despite the ordeal. The thugs were now in custody, their threats silenced by handcuffs and the weight of justice closing in. The community's narrow escape from disaster was a testament to quick thinking and unwavering courage. But the scars of the night remained etched in every face present. Jake's chest rose and fell with measured breaths, adrenaline ebbing away to reveal the toll the rescue had taken. Paramedics checked the boy's vital signs, their practiced hands gentle and reassuring. The dog, though shaken, wagged cautiously as a medic offered soft words and a comforting pat. Jake stepped closer, offering a nod of gratitude to the team. "He'll be okay," one medic assured him, eyes meeting Jake's with a shared understanding of the night's gravity. Officers moved about efficiently, securing evidence and coordinating with specialists to assess the bridge's integrity. Jake's military training had been a guiding force throughout the ordeal, but now he allowed himself a moment of reflection. The boy's family, alerted and en route, would soon arrive, bringing a mixture of relief and lingering fear. The community's quiet riverside, once a place of peaceful solitude, had become a battleground where courage and loyalty had been tested. Jake's mind replayed the moments of the night, the sudden rush of danger, Max's fierce defense, the frantic struggle to disable the bombs. Each flashback reinforced the fragile balance between life and death that had hung in the balance. As the sun climbed higher, casting warm light over the damp earth, Jake felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see the boy's mother, her eyes red-rimmed but shining with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. "You saved my son and our dog. I can never repay you." Jake shook his head, a faint smile breaking through the weariness. "Just doing what anyone should," he said quietly, though the weight of the night's events lingered. Max sat obediently at Jake's side, eyes bright with quiet pride, as if understanding the significance of the moment. The officers briefed Jake on the ongoing investigation. The thug's capture was just the beginning. A larger network still lurked in the shadows, their motives dark and far-reaching. Jake's resolve hardened. This was no random act of violence. It was a calculated threat to the town, and he would not rest until those responsible were brought to justice. As the boy and his family were escorted to safety, Jake took a moment to watch Max, the loyal dog who had been his steadfast companion through the night's trials. Their bond, forged in the crucible of danger, was a reminder of the strength found in loyalty and courage. The morning air was crisp, carrying the promise of a new day. Though the night had tested them all, hope flickered in the rising sun, a beacon for the community to rally around. Jake knew the road ahead would be challenging, but for now, there was solace in the knowledge that lives had been saved and that courage had prevailed. With a final glance at the bridge, still standing despite its scars, Jake and Max prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to protect the innocent and confront the shadows that threatened their quiet town. As the morning sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the riverside town, a quiet sense of gratitude settled over the community. The boy and his family had reunited, their tearful embraces a testament to the fragility of life and the power of resilience. Nearby, Jake Miller stood with Max at his side, the loyal Labrador's tail wagging gently as the family expressed their heartfelt thanks. The boy's mother approached Jake, her eyes moist but shining with sincerity. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, voice trembling. "You saved our son and our dog. You saved our family." Jake shifted uncomfortably, the weight of the night's events pressing down on him. "I just did what anyone would do," he replied softly, though inside he knew that the courage and quick thinking it took were far from ordinary. Max nudged the boy's hand with his nose, eliciting a small smile that seemed to bridge the gap between fear and hope. The bond between human and animal had been a lifeline through the darkness, a reminder that loyalty and love could shine brightest in the face of danger. As the family gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, neighbors and townsfolk began to emerge, drawn by the commotion and the promise of safety restored. Conversations buzzed with a mixture of relief and admiration for the bravery displayed that night. The story of Jake and Max spread quickly, a tale of heroism born from quiet vigilance and fierce loyalty. Jake allowed himself a rare moment of reflection, watching as the community rallied around the boy and his family. The threat they had faced was a stark reminder of the dangers lurking even in the most serene places. Yet, in the midst of fear and uncertainty, the bonds between people and the animals they trusted had proven unbreakable. Officers continued to gather evidence, their determined faces a sign that justice was on its way. The thugs had been apprehended, but Jake knew the larger network behind them was still out there, shadows waiting to be uncovered and brought to light. His military training stirred within him a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to protect the innocent and confront the darkness wherever it hid. Max rested his head on Jake's knee, eyes meeting his with unwavering faith. The dog's presence was a steady reassurance, a reminder of the partnership that had turned the tide that night. Together, they had faced the cruelty of men intent on destruction and had emerged victorious. As the sun warmed the earth and the fog lifted, Jake felt the quiet strength of the community around him, a tapestry woven from courage, loyalty, and the unspoken promise to stand together. The bridge, scarred but still standing, symbolized that resilience. The boy's family lingered for a moment, sharing smiles and gratitude before stepping into the new day. Jake exchanged a final nod with the boy, whose bright eyes now held a spark of hope despite the ordeal endured. With Max by his side, Jake turned toward the horizon, ready to face the challenges ahead. The night's battle had forged new bonds and renewed a commitment to vigilance. In the quiet moments between danger and peace, the story of bravery and loyalty would live on, an enduring testament to the heroes found in both man and animal. As the town began to heal, Jake carried with him the knowledge that courage often came quietly, in the form of steady hands and faithful hearts. And with that, he stepped forward, ready to protect the innocent and face whatever shadows still lurked beyond the riverside bridge. The sun rose steadily over the riverside town, casting warm light across the bridge that had withstood the night's violent threat. Jake Miller stood quietly at the edge, Max resting faithfully at his feet, the loyal Labrador's eyes scanning the horizon with unwavering vigilance. The town was stirring awake, the sounds of daily life slowly returning to the streets, but the weight of what had transpired lingered in the air. Jake's mind traced the events of the past hours, the desperate fight to save a boy and his dog from drowning, the tense confrontation with dangerous men, the frantic battle to prevent the bridge's destruction. Each moment had been a test of courage, quick thinking, and unshakable loyalty. Max had been more than a companion. He had been a guardian, a fierce protector who embodied the very spirit of heroism. As the community gathered near the safe house where the boy and his family had been taken, Jake observed the subtle shifts, the relieved smiles, the tentative laughter, the quiet embraces. The ordeal had forged connections between strangers, binding them through shared trauma and the collective will to protect the innocent. Jake's gaze settled on the bridge once more, its weathered planks standing as a testament to resilience and sacrifice. The scars left by the night's events served as a reminder that peace required constant vigilance, and that heroism often came in unexpected forms. Nearby, Max stirred, nuzzling Jake's hand, as if to remind him they were not alone in this fight. The bond between them transcended words, a silent pledge to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. As the first responders completed their duties and the town began to reclaim its calm, Jake felt a quiet resolve settle within him. The shadows that had threatened the community were still out there, lurking beyond the edges of light and safety. But with loyalty, courage, and trust as their weapons, Jake and Max would stand ready to defend their home. The boy's family approached the bridge, their expressions softening as they saw Jake and Max. The child's eyes met Jake's, filled with gratitude and newfound hope. The dog wagged its tail, sensing the safety that had been restored. Jake stepped forward, offering a gentle smile. "We'll be here," he said simply, his voice steady. "Watching. Protecting." The boy nodded, his small hand reaching out to pat Max's head. In that simple gesture lay a profound understanding, the power of loyalty, the strength found in partnership, and the courage ignited by compassion. As dawn gave way to morning, Jake felt the quiet pride of a protector who had answered the call when it mattered most. The night had tested them all, but it had also revealed the heroes among them, both human and animal, who stood unwavering in the face of danger. With Max at his side and the town behind him, Jake turned from the bridge, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The story of that night would live on, a beacon of hope and a testament to the enduring bonds forged through adversity. Together, they walked into the new day, guardians of a fragile peace, united by loyalty, courage, and the unyielding promise to protect the innocent come what may.